Hey guys, welcome to Angry Mack Adventures, and today we're doing the channel's most requested video, and that is how much did it cost to restore my 1980s Voyager. So I've got a bunch of receipts here that I've kept throughout the build. I've broke it down as best as I could from stripping the boat all the way to restoring the trailer. So strap yourselves in and I hope you enjoy the video. Alrighty, so I purchased this boat 8 months ago on Marketplace. Now it was up for $4,000 and I went and had a look at it, and of course it was in need of a lot of restoration. It needed a complete rebuild. The transom was rooted, stringers were stuffed, and probably 90% of the accessories were non-usable. So I ended up offering the guy $2,500 and he took it. I brought it home and pretty much started stripping it straight away. Now all the cost that I'm going to be doing is minus tools, because there's a lot of ways that you can do it, a lot of techniques. So I'm just basing it off all the materials that I used and of course the man hours as well. So you guys can take the tools into consideration. It probably took about 3 to 4 days, like a good solid couple of days, to really strip the boat out, pull all the wiring out, the upholstery, take the engine off, pull everything out of the boat that wasn't fiberglass, so we could really see what we were working with. So first thing first was actually the transom. We cut it out from the outside. Now a lot of you guys asked how come I didn't do it from the inside. For us it was a lot more convenient to do it from the outside, because if you guys did see it close up, there was a lot of blistering and a lot of osmosis in the back of the transom, and I wanted that all removed, because it would have just been a nightmare trying to repair all those blisters. So I was just like, you know what, let's just remove it and start from scratch in the back. We probably used maybe 2 or 3 flapper discs and a cutting disc to cut out the rear section of the transom and pull out all that rotten plywood. It was absolutely destroyed from the video, you can see. So it probably took about half a day to get all the fiberglass and old marine ply out of that transom, and a good hour or 2 just to clean it up and get it prepared for the new plywood for the transom. Now we used 18mm marine ply, it's an Australian grade marine ply. You can get different grades, so just make sure it is a higher grade. I did a epoxy transom. It is a little bit more expensive, but in the long run I'm hoping that it will be worth it. I was buying the epoxy in bulk. I was buying them in like the 9 kilo containers, but I'd say that I'd used about 10 litres of epoxy resin. Now as for the layup, I used 5 sheets of the cloth with a double bias in the middle, and to bond the marine plywood to the existing fiberglass in the back of the transom, we used an epoxy bog with Epiglass additive, and it worked great. So the transom itself, from stripping it all back to applying the new plywood and laying up all the new glass, fairing it off, sanding back, probably took just over a week. So a lot of hours went into that. Thanks again to Billy for giving me a hand with that. And I'd say in materials it was around the $1,200 mark, and that included the marine ply, the Epiglass, epoxy and the cloth. Now once we finished the transom, of course we started in the middle of the boat, and that was the stringers. The bottom floor where the fuel tank's at, that all needed to get removed. So I just used a circular saw and just cut the floor out, and used a couple of flapper discs to really get all the existing fiberglass out of the boat. Back in the day, 40 years ago, the stringers were just made of like a high density foam for these Voyagers with a bit of glass laid over them. So I pulled all the center stringers out and just used the marine plywood to create the new stringer. Epiglass bog filled that in, and used about 3 or 4 litres of resin with some chop strand, about 3 or 4 layers over the top, and binded all that in prior to laying the floor down. Used flow coat just to seal it all off, because we knew that water was going to be running through there. So of course the false floor where the fuel tank sat on, we sealed it with a epoxy primer on the bottom and 3 or 4 layers of chop strand glass on the top. So to do the stringers and the floor, we're looking around the $300-400 mark, which includes your resin, the chop strand, and the marine plywood. So the hull, we probably used around 10 to 15 sandpaper discs, just sanding it all down and using the flapper disc to grind out a couple of the cracks at the bottom of the hull that needed attention, that I've just grinded out and re-fiberglass back up. So we used 3 or 4 layers of glass and then bogged it up with a polyester based epiglass filler. So I used about 3 litres of resin to get the hull where I wanted it to be, and of course I've used about 3 litres of flow coat. All the materials was about $400 to finish off the hull. So onto the trailer. Now the trailer was a bit of a mission, so I had to kind of do this in sections whilst I was doing the boat restoration. So stripping the trailer was pretty easy, just the basic tools. Stripping from the rollers to the pins to the axles, everything was removed because everything that was galvanized was getting re-galvanized. So I used a lot of grinding discs, the basic hammer, spanners, ratchet set to pull everything apart, and all the bolts, nuts, U-bolts and stuff like that that needed replacing. Once everything was stripped out, we went on with the welding repairs. So there was a couple of new regulations because the trailer was unlicensed. I wanted to fix those up, fix a couple of rust holes, and just get the trailer looking spick and span, ready for the new galvanizing. So once the galvanizing was done, it was just reassembling, putting a brand new Nava light kit in, brand new mud guards, new mud flaps, new bushes. The trailer actually turned out mint. I couldn't be happier. So the trailer, including everything, was about $1,300. So I was thinking about buying a brand new trailer, but I was looking around like the $6-7 grand mark. Now, painting the boat. So painting the boat, there was hours and hours in sanding, bogging, fiberglass repairs, cracks, gel coat cracks that all needs to be removed and repaired. So once the boat was where I wanted it, it was just 2 coats of epoxy primer, and once that was done, the next day the booth was actually booked out, so I had to bring it back to my house and paint it in the backyard, which was pretty exciting. Now, when we got it back here, I used, I think it's called International Paints. It's a marine grade paint. We put about 3 coats on there, and we used about 4 or 5 litres of paint, which was used in a pressure pot, so it wasn't too bad at all. And all the paint, including the epoxy and all the hardeners and stuff like that, come to about $500. Alrighty, so let's talk outboards. Now, the outboard that I got is the 115 Evinrude E-Tech. I purchased it off a guy down in Jurien Bay. He put an ad up on Gumtree. I gave him a call, and I ended up picking that up for $4.5 grand at the time. So wasn't a bad buy, just under 400 hours, and the outboard is immaculate. So it just had all its seals done, a full service history. Every year he serviced it, and he had the opportunity to buy a new outboard this year. So I ended up buying it and putting it on this. So that's the engine out of the way. Accessories. So accessories, obviously you guys decide what accessories you want to put on the boat. I just went for the basics, so that's just your stereo. Thank you to Georgia as well. She bought me the head unit for my birthday, so thank you very much. Steering, the bilge pump of course, navigation lights, LED, cabin lights, the UHF I salvaged, probably the only thing I salvaged. The gauges, the wiring, and of course the sounder. Now the sounder that I had in it was an Elite 7 that come with the boat. I sold that for some money and ended up buying the HGS 9. So thank you very much to Cameron for giving me a hand with that. And with all my accessories, it come to around $7.5 grand. And that included all the wiring, all the terminals, the heat shrink, pretty much everything. Alrighty, the total. So the total cost for everything. Now, I tried to keep every single receipt. There is, oh my God, there's like at least 100 receipts in here. This includes everything up to date now. Of course, I still got a canopy to put on and a few other bits and pieces. The bow rail, marlin boards, all like the stickers and stuff like that. This is purely up until today's episode. And that has cost me $16,000. This price doesn't include anyone's time. So of course I did pay Billy to give me a hand for those first couple of months. So thank you very much to Billy. This is obviously the number of all the materials and everything that cost me to finish the boat. I put a lot of effort into this boat in the last 7 months, like crazy hours. I'd come home from work and do 5-6 hours till 10, 11 o'clock at night. Every night, weekends, Saturdays, Sundays, for a solid 3 months just to get everything ready for paint. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to smash it out and get it ready for paint. And that's where a lot of the hours come in. Billy done a shitload of hours, so thank you very much to Billy. Well guys, that's it for another episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a bit of a lengthy one, so I hope you guys stuck with me. Of course, there's still plenty more content to come. I'm hoping that you guys are inspired to, do your own repairs, your own restoration, because to be honest with you, it was such a sick journey. I loved every minute of it, and to do its first sea trial last week was honestly such an amazing feeling, especially when you've done all the work yourself. So thank you to everyone that was supporting the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.